Hello again, this is Professor Robert Lenz, a law librarian at the University of Colorado Law School in Boulder, Colorado. This is another presentation on the topic of secondary authority. If you caught the earlier presentation, it was about thinking about what secondary authority is and how to approach it. In this presentation, we're going to be looking at using secondary authority to get to know a particular area of law. These are the secondary authority you turn to when you're trying to learn about an area of law. And these really are legal encyclopedias, American Law Report annotations, and we'll look at certain treatises. So what these three resources have in common is they're really descriptive secondary authority. We discussed in the earlier presentation a distinction between descriptive versus prescriptive authority. Descriptive simply tells us what the law is, and when we are trying to learn a new area of law, that's really what we want to know. We want to know what the key cases and statutes are and the terms that we need to know about and how it all works together. These will do it. So these are good starting points. These encyclopedias and ALRs and hornbooks and nutshells are good starting points for general introductions to area of law. Let's talk about the legal encyclopedias. There are two types. There are national legal encyclopedias and state encyclopedias. The advantage legal encyclopedias have for us as newer researchers is familiarity. We've used encyclopedias really throughout our lives. Some of us may remember using a World Book in print or in Britannica in print. Of course, we've also used online ones, probably Wikipedia. But what we know about them is that they're fairly easy to use. They have an index. They are very, very approachable and very understandable. There is a specialty subset of encyclopedias that are legal encyclopedias. The two national encyclopedias are American Jurisprudence, which you'll see abbreviated as AMJUR, and Corpus Juris Secundum, which you'll see abbreviated as CJS. They are both in their second editions, and these are what we'll be using for this kind of research. They're both also Thomson Reuters or West publications. So they incorporate elements of the West Digest system and references typically to West publications. Having said that, that means they're available on Westlaw, but you'll find that AMJUR is also available on Lexis Advance. So if you're a Lexis user, you have access to AMJUR. And then there are state encyclopedias that narrow the coverage to that state jurisdiction. The availability of a state encyclopedia really varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Some states really don't have any, others do have some sort of a state encyclopedia. For our purposes, though, we're really thinking about and using national encyclopedias. All right, what are the features of a legal encyclopedia? Well, they provide a broad overview of an area of law. So you can look up a topic like search and seizure and it'll give you the broad pointers what it is. It has a comprehension collection of topics. So a legal encyclopedia in print will run dozens and dozens of volumes, and in those dozens of volumes, basically the majority certainly of topics, legal topics, will be treated within those dozens of volumes. It doesn't treat them necessarily in a great deal of depth, but it may likely have something to say about everything. They're easy to use and understand, as I was saying just now. They're easy to access. It's easy to read the articles. And they provide citations to primary and secondary authority, as all secondary authority tends to do. So they're very good starting points for our research. You should note something about the authorship of the articles and authority, though some of the encyclopedia articles will have an author or authors for them. These are individuals certainly are not considered experts or scholars in the law. They may be writing these topics, may be writing these article entries for any number of given topics. They're certainly trustworthy, but not necessarily experts, and you wouldn't turn to a legal encyclopedia for an authoritative statement of the law. The search method is pretty straightforward. If you use them in print, you can start in the index. There's typically multi-volume index at the end of the articles volumes. You can look it up by keyword. You can also start in a topic table of contents and look for look for it topically, or a table of laws. If you're looking for a particular statute or case, you can see if it's treated in the encyclopedia, and if so, where. And once you get these citations, you cross-reference them to the article volumes itself, and then you pull the article. You can use all of these methods online. Plus, you can also use field searching online and keyword searching online, which is enormously can be enormously productive. So here is a 3 pages from AMGR article on generally on navigable waters, dealing with what is a navigable water and how things are affected. So on the far left, you see that there is a page that provides a summary and a scope of what the article is. It tells us where it's treated elsewhere. When you turn to the actual content page, it gives us the section and the title of the section, a reference to the West Key Number digests, and where else you can find information about the topic, and then it provides the description of the area law. And then finally, further along inside the article, you'll find footnotes, and these footnotes contain the references to the primary authority, in this case a reference to 33 U.S.C. section 401, a cross-reference to the Code of Federal Regulations, and here's even a reference to cases. So it's a very useful introduction to the law and to the primary authority. Let's turn our attention now to American Law Reports, or ALRs as they're known. Whereas the legal encyclopedias provide a broad overview of any number of different areas of law, what an ALR does is provide really a descriptive analysis of a narrow topic or an issue of law. So it's like a legal encyclopedia article in that it's descriptive and provides citations to primary and often secondary authority, but it's unlike a legal encyclopedia in that it's really very issue specific. This has also been known as the leading case method of legal research. What the publisher has done traditionally is they would identify a case, a recently decided case, a leading case on some issue of law. And when this was done in print, they would reprint the case, and then they would print the annotation with the case. And so consequently, if there is a particular issue of law that you're researching, or there's a case that exists on this issue of law, this is a good resource to turn to. In fact, I would really recommend that whenever you're doing your research and you get to some issue that you would like to see what might be written about it, you think of ALR as a resource to look at. Because of the comprehensive nature of an American Law Report annotation, and that it looks at all of the authority that discuss this particular issue of law, it's sometimes kind of jokingly referred to as already done legal research, ALR, already done legal research, because if you find an annotation on point, it can be a huge time saver in finding citations to primary and secondary authority. So what are the parts of an ALR annotation? Well, the annotation, if you look in a print volume, it would be the annotation and reprint of the case. The annotation itself is composed of a title, an author, and a citation, an outline of what they're covering, an index of what's within it, a table of authority to the primary authority, and then various research references. If you're searching online or using these online, you can use the advanced search and use field searching to improve your effectiveness of your search. So here is a ALR annotation on navigable waters and what are navigable waters subject to the Federal Water Pollution Control Act. Unlike the legal encyclopedia entry we looked at previously, which is fairly broad and talked about a broader topic, this is very narrow. It's trying to answer the question is, what is a navigable water as defined under the FWPCA? And it tells us, it gives us a summary of the courts. It cites a case in which it's really basing this particular annotation on. Here's the table of contents for the annotation. You get the outline, the index, provides handily the statutory text because it's so relevant here. Then a table of cases, laws, and rules, and research references. You see the next page, it gives us the section 1362 definitions, the citation to the U.S. Code, more citations to the U.S. Code, and then it starts with giving us Supreme Court cases, and you see the next entry would be First Circuit cases. And finally, the third page I've excerpted here, you see this entry from the author on general views. Here's some text and what they're saying. The courts in the following cases held or recognized the terms navigable waters as used in the FWPCA is broader than the traditional use of the term encompassing waters of the United States. And then here are the cases that they found that support this statement. So again, ALR is extremely useful research tool and one that ought to be considered. Okay, what about another kind of introduction to law? How about treatises? And so we'll have a later presentation on treatises, and we'll look at them in more detail. What I'd like to look at, though, in this video is just three particular kinds of treatises: a nutshell, a hornbook, and more generally, study aids. We probably have already used nutshells and study aids for preparation for our classes. And what we know them to be are good introductory overviews of an area of law. So if you're taking contracts or torts or property or any first year class, and actually quite frankly have nutshells on any of just about all the different law school subject areas, you can read those during or before the class and get a sense for what that topic area is about and how to understand it and what the terms are and what the key cases and statutes are. It's a good resource. They're typically authored by law professors, but might also be authored by practitioners or legislators or judges. Despite that, though, they're not authoritative. You wouldn't cite what you found in a nutshell in a court document, for example. That would not be appropriate. A similar resource to a nutshell is a hornbook, and a hornbook tends to be provides a more in-depth treatment of the subject than a nutshell will. It may be broader in its coverage of the topic. It may be deeper in its coverage of a topic than a nutshell. There are actually two kinds of hornbooks. There's a student hornbook, which is typically a one-volume publication, and they can be particularly useful. There's also a practitioner hornbook, which is usually authored by the same individual, but it's usually 2 or more volumes, and it just goes into more detail on whatever topic it is. Hornbooks are pretty easy to use. There would be an index, certainly a table of contents, typically a table of laws or cases, and you simply look up the topic that you're interested in and then turn to the page where it's treated and read about it. So these two are very good resources for learning the law, being introduced to an unfamiliar area of law. And then finally, the study aid, and there are just a broad variety of study aids, as law students know all about. And which one you choose and how you choose them is really a function of what the problem is that you're trying to solve. But there are study aids that mimic or are similar to nutshells and hornbooks, and those might be good starting places as well. All right. So what we'd like to do is really look at how to find legal encyclopedias and ALRs on Westlaw and Lexis, and we'll have a demonstration in just a moment. Here's the problem that we looked at previously on the online searching presentation, and for purposes of our research, we're going to look for or use as a search phrase this one below here: filling or dredging /p within the same paragraph as stream or creek or canal. And we'll see what these legal encyclopedias and ALRs can do to help us figure out what Jane Gabilda can and can't do with her property. Okay, now that we have our problem and we have our search terms, let's go on to Westlaw and Lexis Advance and see where we would find the legal encyclopedias and the ALR annotations. Let's start in Westlaw. There are a number of different ways that we could get to CJS and AmJur. what I want to look at is using one of these content areas to look for secondary sources. We have a content area for secondary sources. This will return a rather long list of secondary sources that Westlaw provides. In fact, it's 4,297 of these resources. What we can use though is these narrowing filters on the left-hand side of the page, and we notice that in addition for a topic and jurisdiction, we see one for publication type. We see the American Law Reports. This would be a way we could go search for American Law Reports, but for us, we want to look for now for jurisprudence and encyclopedias, and then apply the filter. This will do so, and we find that that long list is now narrowed down to 25 resources, all of which are national or state legal encyclopedias. Here's American Jurisprudence Second, and we see Corpus Juris Secundum, but we also see various state legal encyclopedias as well. We also see the little information bubbles to the right of the title, and we learned in the earlier presentation about how to be a better online searcher that that's one of the steps we want to take. When we search a database, we want to look at the information bubble and find out the coverage, when it was last updated, in this case very recently, this month, October 2017, and last month, October 2017, plus we want to find out about fields and searching if we wanted to search fields. For now, that's looking good. We'll choose that as a database, and then we'll enter in our search here that we want to use and see if Corpus Juris Secundum can provide us any sort of information about the problem. We get back 16 search results, and really at this point we want to skim through results looking at both the title of the section plus also where it's located in CJS. Again, for secondary authority, context is very important, and this is one way we can establish context, where that article is located within the larger publication. You can see this one on maintenance of canals generally is in a article on canals, evidence in pleading again within canals, standing within canals. Now here's reclamation improvement though within waters. Back to canals. We see natural navigability now in a new topic, navigation or navigability. And if we look further, we see reasonable use. We see from our highlights something about owner of a tract filling in canals and taking it to restore rivers natural flowing, and there are others as well. After doing some research, I might conclude that I really need to look at this title, natural navigability, and we're now within navigable waters is the topic, or the citation would mean volume 65 of the print volumes. Section 7 is in natural navigability. So we want to orient ourselves to where we are. We look for a table of contents. This helps us. For contextual clues, we already know it's under navigable waters. It's under specifically what are navigable waters, and determination and proof of navigability. Maybe this will be helpful for us. Here is the text of the encyclopedia article with some description about what the law is, and then the other point of using secondary authority is to get to all the primary authority, citations to primary authority, and here it is in the footnotes, various cases to U.S. and state court cases. So very nice. The other thing we want to look for is references. Hopefully references to other secondary authority, and we find it. There's a reference to the ALR library, so this topic apparently is treated under waters and water courses in the ALR index, and it comes under a digest topic of navigable waters, which we'll look at when we look at cases. And then finally, you could have started with this topic summary, and this will allow us to see what is covered under this topic of navigable waters, where else it's treated, and then other Westlaw databases that may be useful. All right. So now we have a new search phrase we want to think about, navigable waters. Maybe navigable waters is useful. So why don't we check AMJUR and ALR now, but to do that, we're going to look in LexisNexis. So to simplify my life, I'm going to copy navigable waters and use it for my next search term. All right, so now we're in Lexis Advance, and let's open to Lexis Advance itself. And this time, since we know we want to look in AMGR, we could drill down through secondary materials from one of the content areas like we did in Westlaw. But now instead, let's just type in here American jurisprudence, and it should pop up, and there it is, as one of the sources to search. So we choose that, and now we are doing what we found in the, you talked about in the online searching presentation about a source-driven search. We're in the source. For AMGR, there is the information bubble again. This tells us what the coverage is, and the coverage is 2002 through current. This is fine. And then you could take a sort of a topical approach to doing research. You can see all the different topics that are listed here, and you could drill down into any one of them. There seem to be a lot of topics. What we'd like to do, though, is search all the documents in the source. And we've got our search terms of navigable waters this time. Let's see if that provides any better results. And we come up with AMGR second waters. So they have a topic in AMGR called waters. And from our highlights, we see something about navigable waters, different section numbers. We see a context of it, particular types of waters or bodies, navigable water, government control, beds, banks, ownership and use, constitutional provisions. For our purposes, we really could bring up any of these to see how it's treated, if it's treated much differently from CJS. And here is the article itself that will arise here in just a second. And it gives us, again, the context for it and the authorship. Ownership, this is the context, or the text, again, of the article. And then various references, including references to the West Key Number Digest, and then some more footnotes with primary authority. So very similar to the other presentation of the CJS and Westlaw. And then we can pull out to a table of contents to get some context itself. Okay, so that's something, maybe that helps our research, maybe it doesn't, but now what we want to do is look for American law reports. So let's see if we can do that from here. Indeed we can. We can type in the name of the title, ALR, up it comes. And now what we'd like to do is maybe we can use our same search terms to search it. You notice that this brings us really to an advanced search screen. You can search document fields or segments. Segments is what Lexis calls those. Fields is what Westlaw calls those. So we could, instead of making a general search in American law reports for navigable waters, maybe we'd like to look just within a title or a section for navigable waters. In fact, let's try that. Let's try navigable waters and run that search. You see it created a field here. And any luck, or are we too narrow? Nah, seems like it's okay. So we come back with 8 search results. This is great, right? Navigable waters actually shows up in the search, in the title itself, so we have some degree of confidence that that annotation is really about navigable waters. Maybe not about dredging and filling them, but it's about navigable waters. And we find 1 or 2 tantalizing titles right at the top. Water navigable waters subject to Federal Water Pollution Control Act. Here is a citation to a U.S. code provision. Here's another one: what constitutes discharge of dredged or fill materials in navigable waters so as to be subject to permit requirements under Section 404A of this same Act, 33 U.S.C.A. 1344A. Great. We would really want to look at probably both of those and others as well, but for now, let's bring up this first one. And we find that the article itself. So there's the title that we knew about. Here is the citation to the ALR annotation. It's in volume 160 of the ALR Federal Series. There were various series for ALRs. Some were numbered, some were federal. The distinction doesn't really matter as much anymore when you do online research. But this was published at volume 116 ALR Federal at page 585. And then we see this jurisdictional table of statutes and cases, an index, table references, and article of outline. And then the text itself, right? This annotation collects and discusses those federal cases which courts have addressed what constitutes navigable waters subject to provisions of the Federal Water Pollution Control Act. And we can continue to read through the summary and comment and general views and authority that's cited. In this case, this is almost exclusively cases that's cited to support the author's description of what the law is. That authority we can more directly get to if we look at a jurisdictional table of statutes and cases. Index of terms is here. We'll go to the beginning of the cases and table of references. All right, it's making it a little harder on us today, but they're there. Here are the cases and the statutes. So this would help us expand our research. So remember, ALR stands for Already Done Legal Research, and you can see that this annotation on what are navigable waters under that act is comprehensive. It looks at all aspects of it and provides us with all the authority that's relevant to that question. And these annotations are updated by the publisher. All right. So there it is. That's ALR, and a way to search it using a fields and segments. At this point, we would review it. We would update our research logs with what we found, the citations to this ALR, and authority itself. All right, that's that. And with that summary, we're now done with this presentation. If you have any questions about Boolean searching or terms and connectors searching, natural language searching, let me know. My contact information is here on the slide. Thank you.